Story: 4 girls want to marry a prince. Once upon a time, there was a rich man and his wife who had 4 daughters. Growing up, she was so beautiful that no one in her area could compare to her. Their parents wanted to find a place to marry them, but when asked, all 4 girls answered, "We just want to marry a prince." Their parents said, "You are children of the people. The children of kings and princesses in the world lack nothing like national beauty. How could I have such a far-fetched dream?" But no matter how much I persuaded them, they refused to listen. A long time ago, the rich man and his wife were angry, so they gave each girl a piece of silver, telling them to go away wherever they went. The 4 sisters took the money, and together they set out to find the capital. On the afternoon of the second day, they walked on a deserted road full of hills and mountains. I kept walking. The sun was about to set, but I didn't see anyone. Finally reaching a fork in the road, they met an old woman. So happy, the girls gathered around to ask, "Madam, where is your house?" The old woman also seemed friendly. "Where are you guys going?" "We are going to the capital. It will be dark when we get here." Pointing a grove of trees in the distance, the old woman said, "The old house is over there. Please let us rest for the night, is that okay? If you don't mind the old house being cramped, please come and rest. Come on, girls, please follow me." Without hesitation, the 4 sisters followed the old woman. Through a quite long road, they came to a grove of trees. Inside there was a small house. Pointing to a bed, the old woman said, "That bed, the children can lie here, but the old people sleep in the other room." Seeing that the house was deserted, the girls asked again, "Ma'am, do you live alone?" "There is a daughter who has been away for a while. I haven't come home yet today." Because we were tired from the journey, the girls climbed into bed and took a deep sleep. Only the youngest girl, because the bed was too cramped, lay on the outside and couldn't sleep. She suddenly smelled a fishy smell. Waiting. When she heard the old woman snoring in the room, she secretly got up and looked for a crack in the door to look in. It turned out that under the old woman's bed, skulls and white bones were scattered everywhere, flies were buzzing, and a fishy smell came out. Nauseous. That's right, it's the house of a female demon who specializes in luring children to eat them. Seeing 4 young girls in need of a place to rest, I couldn't have been more happy than that, so I invited them home, preparing to imprison them in a closed cellar, waiting for my daughter to come back one by one to catch a bowl of meat. When she clearly saw the dangerous situation, the youngest girl immediately woke her sisters up, whispered everything to them, and then said, "This is an elf's house, there is no doubt about it anymore. So while it's sleeping, let's quickly escape from this place, otherwise our lives will be ruined." The sisters hastily opened the door and walked out of the bushes. But not long after walking, they realized they were lost. After wandering around for a while, they suddenly came across a temple. "My sisters are so tired, go sit down and rest for a while." But then they were afraid that the goblins would wake up and catch up with them, so they hurriedly left. At that time, the god at the temple knew the 4 sisters as noble people. So he appeared before them and asked gently, "Where are you going?" The 4 girls replied, "We are going to the capital." "Are you not afraid to walk late at night?" 4 sisters told the story of meeting a goblin and getting lost. The god said, "I am the god of this temple. Come with me, I will protect you all the way to the capital." Having said that, the god turned into a tall man and told the girls to follow him, hiding under his cloak. After a while, the 4 girls heard a rumbling sound behind them. The god said, "Stay very quiet, my deer has caught up with us." After that, the god picked up the girls and sat in his pocket, one for each bag. After a while, the demon caught up and asked, "Hey old man, have you seen the 4 girls going this way?" Answer: "I have, but they turned the other way, a long time ago." Strange, why? "I smell human flesh? Then I just finished eating. The leftovers are still thrown along the road. If you're hungry, come back and pick them up to eat." When the demon turned away, the god just left them alone. The girl in her pocket walked quickly. The rooster has not yet crowed in the 5th watch and has already arrived at the window door. The god picked up the girls and put them on the ground again and said, "Now it's time for your period. It's also about dawn. You guys find an inn to rest so I can return." As soon as I stepped onto the ground, the 4 girls all bowed down, thanking me for saving their lives. But when they looked up, the god had disappeared. Talking about goblins again. When they returned, they searched and searched but could not find the 4 girls. The delicious bait was about to enter his mouth but he missed it, so his anger filled his hips. Not long after that, he heard the news that the prince was marrying 4 sisters at the same time. Unexpectedly, his 4 preys would become the prince's wife. His anger, which had subsided, flared up again. I'll find a way to make them become desolate and wild." Thinking so, he waited for the prince to ascend the throne, knowing that the new king was a lover of beauty, so he turned his daughter into a beautiful, naked woman. Then one day he took his daughter back to the capital and put her in his palace overnight garden, where the king often walked every day. Seeing the beautiful girl walking among the flower beds, the king was stunned and fascinated. The king asked, "Where did you come from?" Answer: "My mother brought me to visit the capital, but because I was so fascinated with the scene, mother and daughter got separated. In the end, I fell into this place because of flower intoxication, not knowing that this was a forbidden garden. Do you want to live with me in the royal palace? In your Majesty's palace, there are women who have fallen into the sea, and I am ugly. Not worthy of your Majesty. But just as I wanted, you left them far behind. Well, follow me into the palace, I will be satisfied with whatever you want." Only then did the elf girl speak out her intentions. "If your Majesty wants to have sex with me, please first kick everyone out of the palace, including His Majesty's ex-wives." The king was in a passion and immediately replied, "How difficult is that?" He took the beautiful girl back to the palace, and ordered the palace maids to immediately chase the 4 sisters out of the royal citadel. When hearing the command, the 4 sisters thought they heard thunder. But the king's words, the palace maids had no choice but to carry out. At that time, the youngest daughter was pregnant. Even though she earnestly pleaded, the king did not pity her. The maids and guards followed orders to lead them out of the palace gate. The goblins, after carrying out their poison, were now waiting for them at the market. He transformed into an inn with all kinds of polite utensils, and turned himself into the innkeeper, waiting for the 4 girls to get tired of wandering before speaking up and inviting them. "We have room at our store. Decent accommodation, worthy of long-distance guests. Please come in and rest in peace." Without any doubt, the 4 royal ladies had to temporarily go to the inn to rest. Late at night, the goblin sneaked into the room while they were sleeping and very quietly took out their 8 eyes. Then, he magically disappeared the inn and all its belongings, then flew all the way home. The next morning, the 4 sisters woke up to find themselves lying in the middle of an empty land, their eyes blind. Cried very pitifully. The Buddha was sitting on the lotus throne and suddenly heard a cry and sobbed and immediately came down. Buddha asked, "Why are you crying?" The girls told the Buddha about their fate. After listening, the Buddha said, "You are in great trouble. Try to live to raise your children, one day you will reunite." Then, the Buddha made a house with 10,000 coins and a jar of rice, telling him that whatever was emptied would be filled up. Listening to the Buddha's words, the 4 girls felt secure in staying here. The youngest girl gave birth to a son. The boy is stubborn and grows up quickly. At the age of 5, the Buddha transformed into a human every night to teach martial arts and literature. The boy is smart, healthy, and learns quickly. At the age of 8, he was proficient in all martial arts, brave and agile, and knew all the ways to respond to advance and retreat. The Buddha then told him the old story of his mother and aunts, about meeting a goblin, being chased away by the king, and having his eyes gouged out by the goblin. Then he gave it a horse and said, "Go to the goblin's house alone. I called myself my grandchild to visit my grandmother. Use all your cleverness so that he will not be suspicious, then find a way to avenge your mother and aunts." The boy rode the horse according to the Buddha's instructions and found his beloved mother's house. He got off his horse and greeted very politely, "Ma'am, my mother is the queen. Please let me come visit you." The elf tried asking a few questions and saw that she answered fluently. She believed that she was a real grandchild and was happy to welcome her in. After staying for a few days, the boy saw many strange things and kept asking, "Ma'am, what do you use that stick for?" The goblin replied, "Oh, that thing is very precious. It is used to indicate shallow rivers, flat mountains, ma'am. That jar contains eyes. What do you use it for?" "Those are the eyes you got from those 4 sisters, your nursing gift." "Ma'am, what do you use that cup of water for?" "If we pour that cup of water into the jar containing the eyes will return to their original owner." "What do you use that lion for?" "That lion keeps your life and that of my mother. Even if you or your mother were beheaded by someone, you would never die. But if you cut off the lion's head, you and your mother will both die." At that time, the Buddha transformed into a white mouse and crawled onto the goblin's roof, shaking the little bell hanging on the roof. That bell rarely rings. Every time it rings, it means the demon lord in the deep forest is calling his servants to come see him. So when he heard the bell ring, the elf hurriedly told him, "I'm staying at home. I have to go to work. I won't be back in 3 days. Remember to keep everything for Grandma." But the goblin did not expect that while he was away, the boy gathered all his treasures and rode back to the capital. When he arrived, he went straight to the palace and asked to see the king. The king let him in, but because he didn't know who he was, he asked, "Who are you? What have you come?" "Your Majesty, I am your son, born to one of the 4 sisters who were previously abandoned by you." Having said that, the boy told the king everything in one go. from the time his mother and aunts were kicked out of the palace to the time he tricked the demon girl into holding the evidence in her hands. Then he continued, "The king abandoned his virtuous wives to have fun with the goblins. Currently, the king's father's life is like a nest egg." The king replied, saying that the queen is an elf. "I absolutely do not believe that. If your father doesn't believe it, then I'll cut off this lion's head and see if it's true." Then he cut the lion into 3 pieces. The queen, who was lying in the palace, suddenly fainted and died. Meanwhile, the mother elf, who was in the cave with the demon lord, also fell unconscious. Only then did the king clearly realize the truth, so he ordered the queen's body to be thrown out onto the beach. Its flesh rots and turns into flies, mosquitoes and other insects. The king then followed the prince to visit his ex-wives. Just as he entered the house, the prince took the elf's cup of water and poured it into the eye cup, and the eyes suddenly jumped up, as if by magic, and attached themselves to the eye sockets of the 4 women. The prince's mother and his aunts saw everything again and were as beautiful as before. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.